This is the AAAI community meeting. We used to have this thing called a business meeting, and during Tom's time, he had this great idea that it would be much more useful to have an actual open community meeting so that we could discuss where the organization is going and so on. So we will get started. There's a bunch of things that we're going to get through. That's approximately the outline of what we're going to do. The conferences, of course, the overview of the current as well as the next conference, and the association itself, and then the significant end part for discussion about the association as well as any comments, suggestions from the membership. Okay, so if you have. So that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, let's get started with that. So I want to start with a moment of silence for some of the researchers who have passed away this year. These are four that I have kept track of. We have kept track of. So Danny Bobrow, of course, was the past president of AAAI and also ran AI Journal. Alan Kohlmaurer is the inventor of Prolog. Arvind Joshi is an Ichkai Research Excellence Award winner, as well as, of course, very well known for his work in natural language processing. And most recently, Chuck Rich, who has done very interesting work in human-AI collaboration, also passed away. So I would like that we take 1 minute of silence, observe a 1 minute of silence. Thank you. Okay, so let's get back to the community meeting. Of course, as you probably already could guess by just looking at the hallways and the rooms, our attendance at the conference is continuing to grow. So those are the numbers until 2017, and that's, of course, 2018. And it's almost 36% up in terms of attendance. Of course, the rest of the statistics about all the great things that happened in terms of the number of papers that were submitted, et cetera, were discussed by Sheila and Killian. But this is something that, for an association, we are very happy that, the attendance is continuing to grow. The other thing, of course, is that AAAI is an international organization, and we have a significantly large international participation, while US still continues to have the largest number of attendees. There are other countries, of course, multiple, I think we have about 46 countries which have, we have attendees from there. So I think here are some top statistics. USA went from 964 to 1,013. China went from 275 to 465. That's like close to a 70% increase in terms of the attendance. And Japan and Canada and Korea are the top 5 in terms of the registrations to the conference in terms of the attendees. I should mention to our colleagues from China that the number of papers submitted from China were 50% more than those from USA, and yet the number of attendees are 50% lower, actually almost 100% lower, not 100%, 50% lower. So, so it would be nice that, in fact, in going forward, in fact, that might actually happen next year. we'll have more international, even larger international participation. That's about the international representation. Of course, that gets us to kind of celebrating this conference. There is still a whole entire half day, plus of course all sorts of fun activities tonight of this conference. I don't want to say that it's over by any means, but certainly, a big chunk of the work has been done, and big chunk of all the talks and the invited speeches, etc., are done. And this morning they gave. There was a award ceremony that Sheila and Killian did. That was just one of the pictures I took. There were lots and lots of other awards they gave. But really, the one award that hasn't yet been given out and that I think we should do is to thank Sheila and Killian. Those, by the way, are, from what I can tell, the Deep Dream pictures, so the very AI-style pictures, and that sort of show our AI-style appreciation for Sheila as well as Killian. I was mentioning to Sheila that I have known her for quite a long time, and I have known her as like the biggest masochist in terms of doing these sorts of service, and somehow she was able to find, or she was able to work with another person who seems to be equally, if not more, masochist. This is a really, really large conference, and they had to deal with so much work. And I think as you saw from all the statistics they have provided, I don't know exactly if they basically had sleep in the last 1 year, but they have done lots and lots of things. And one of the most interesting things to me was in the last week, they were busily trying to put together additional programs, including the debate. And I remember thinking, my God, these guys have energy. So really, we owe a lot to Sheila and Killian, and we'd like them to come up and take a token of our appreciation. I mean, clearly there is lots of Bitcoins in those bags, and that's what makes it all worthwhile for our program chairs. Although I think didn't the stock market go down the other day? Anyway, so it's just amazing. Every year, as we are living in interesting times, and the community is growing, and so we're asking for more and more from the program chairs, and it's just amazing to have this kind of people step forward and do this great work. In addition to the AAAI main conference itself, as some of you already know, we had the very first AAAI ACM conference on artificial intelligence, ethics, and society. That was held it was held this year as a collocated conference, and it was held during the first 2 days, during the workshop and tutorial days. And we weren't sure how many people will show up there, and we were sort of trying to hope for, getting. So it turned out that the room that we reserved was not enough to actually hold all the people, because there were 250 plus registrants for that. And Francesca Rossi, who is, of course, one of us. She is a AAAI fellow. She helped in running that conference. She had 3 other program chairs to help her. This is a ACM AAAI collaboration, but Francesca spent a lot of time actually making this happen. She, I believe, had to leave, but we should also thank her for starting a very, very timely conference, which will hopefully continue every year. So talking about masochists, they are born every day, apparently, in AAAI and AI. So we have AAAI 2019 program chairs, as you might remember, are Ziwa Zhu from Nanjing University, China, and Pascal van Hentenrijk from Michigan. And that's a beautiful picture. And I'm showing that to you because we are going there next year. So this is halfway to Asia. So people from Asia can walk from that side, people from the US can walk from this side, and we'll all meet and have a great time. And you can see knowledge transfer between the program chairs of this year and program chairs of next year has already started happening. You can see that sort of spring in their step because they're going to Hawaii. Okay, so I did want to stop here and let Pascal say a few words about 2019 conference.
Yes, good evening. So Rao asked me to tell you a few words about next year's conference. Ziwa is actually back in China already, so I'm representing him today as well. So the first thing that I want to say is that we have tremendous admiration for what Sheila and Kilian has done. I mean, this is amazing. This is decision-making under uncertainty at its best. Also, Carol, obviously. But you guys have done a fantastic job. I can tell you, as you can see on the picture, well, that you don't see the picture there. We spent yesterday, a couple of hours with them yesterday trying to extract everything from their brains and also their computers, to tell you the truth. So I think they have done a phenomenal job, and we'll try to build on that foundation. We also would like to acknowledge that the fact that the conference committee of this conference is an amazing sounding board, and we generated a lot of ideas this morning when talking to them. The second thing I wanted to say, and this is once again copying what Sheila did last year, is soliciting ideas from you guys. Anything related to the conference or anything related to anything you can send to us. If you have emerging tracks that you see, if you have ideas on invited speakers, on some innovations that you want to see happen, some old things that you want to bring back, just send us email. I don't promise we'll respond to all of them, but at least we'll try to take them into account. So the last thing I wanted to say is that please send your best paper and please participate as much as you can to the program committee, to the review process. We'll need many of you, given the size of this conference, and we hope that you will be willing to help us doing the best program we can next year and to make it as exciting as possible. So thank you.
So also, I don't know if those of you who noticed that we have this word knowledge in this slide. That sort of tells you that's AAAI and not NIPS, because we actually still believe in transferring knowledge as against just learning it from many trials. I did try telling them to just watch a whole bunch of conferences and figure out how things work, but they preferred some sort of a knowledge transfer. Okay, I don't know. I mean, I think deep learning will be a much better idea, I think. Anyway. So Pascal mentioned this mysterious thing called conference committee. These are people, who wake up very early in the morning and have breakfast in that room this morning. And of course, for the rest of the year, they think about, they're like sort of the steering committee for conference, the AAAI conferences in general as a whole, and also, of course, in particular for AAAI main conference. That conference committee is chaired by a conference committee chair. AAAI is kind of special in the sense that unlike, instead of having just like one conference chair every year, we have one conference committee chair that actually continues for several years. Yolanda Gill was a conference committee chair at one point of time. For some number of years. I was for some number of years. And then for the last several years, I believe more than 5 years, Shlomo has actually been a rock, actually, in basically making sure that the corporate memory about what is working, what is not working, as he kept track of. For some reason, he doesn't want to do it anymore, and so he would like to transition. I don't know why, but we thank him greatly for his service, and I would like Shlomo to come up and get a plaque. Is Peter Stone here? So Peter would actually be taking over as the conference committee chair. He's already spent a lot of time in this conference, and he was in, he talked to Shlomo, and he was in the conference committee meeting this morning. And so we are in good hands. We are in good hands. So that's regarding the conference committee chair transition. This is the part where we have talked mainly about the main conference. In the second part, I want to talk about the AAAI, the association itself. And of course, the fact that AAAI not only just runs the main conference, but also a variety of other conferences, including, of course, AAAI, which was held here. So in terms of the state of the association itself, as you can see, these three here, the three of us here are currently the president, past president, and president-elect. I was hoping to see pictures where Tom would look really happy, I look somewhat happy, and Yolanda should be very worried. But because Yolanda will be stepping in as the president in July meeting of the council. Okay, and in addition to that, at the executive committee, we also have a secretary-treasurer. That's currently Ted Senator. In a minute, I'll say a little bit about that. And then, of course, there is executive director, Carol. Is Carol here? She should be here. Okay, so of course, many of you know that AAAI runs because of Carol Hamilton. And again, I just wanted to mention that this year, the significant increase in the number of papers submitted and also the additional conference added and so on, having a stable presence like Carol, actually making sure that things will happen with none of us having to panic too much was a great thing. And I'd like us to thank Carol for all the service she's always done, plus also this year's service. So the next thing, of course, is I said our secretary-treasurer is Ted Senator, but Ted actually has been the senator for quite a long time, for 15 years. For the secretary for 15 years. And he has done so much service to AAAI that I believe like 4 years or so back, he got the Distinguished Service Award. And he still continued to help us. People would normally move on after getting the award because many of you probably do it just for that. So he's really, really, he's really is a nice, it's been a great help to the organization. And he wanted to sort of transition, and he's actually made plans for it close to 1.5 years back, and he identified his able successor, David Smith, and then in the council meeting, at the beginning of the conference, they actually basically, he passed on the important things about running doing the treasurer job to David Smith. Okay, of course, David Smith is our new treasurer, but I want us to take time and thank Ted once again for all the great work that he has done for this organization for such a long time.
Let me just make an editorial
Sure,
comment.
please do.
We're a bunch of idealists. We don't do it for the awards. He's just too cynical. Anyway.
Okay. So that's regarding secretary-treasurer transition. And then, of course, the AAAI has an executive council, which is actually the main body that sort of has to decide on all the policies. And they have 3-year staggered terms. So this year, this past year, we elected 4 new councillors. And so these are the 12 councillors of AAAI right now. And we'll again be soon electing 4 new councillors again. Okay, that's regarding the AAAI leadership. Now, in terms of the activities, of course, we run the AAAI conference on AI, innovative applications on AI, IAAI, the EAAI, which is also co-located here, which is educational advances in artificial intelligence. And we also do outside of AAAI location, AI IDE, the artificial intelligence and interactive digital entertainment, conference on web and social media, ICWSM, human computation and crowdsourcing, HComp, and of course, I forgot to add AIES, which is this new AAAI ACM conference on AI ethics and society. And of course, we also run the AI magazine, and we support the AI topics, which send you these AI alerts, which, about the AI news. Okay, so those are all the things that, in terms of the conferences and the publications that we do. One thing that's become much more important, this has always been a part of the organization, but given the significant interest in AI now, and given the fact that AI is quickly becoming this Mark Twain's definition of classic, that it's a classic is something that everybody wishes they have already read and nobody has actually read that. So many people think they are experts in outside of AI community. So it's very important for us to step forward. And so AAAI has been doing a lot of that in the last couple of years, especially this year. So as part of this conference, we had a collaboration with Curiosity Machine, and they actually brought some local high school students and provided them interesting experiment, background as well as, and then they had done all these nice experiments. As you can see from that video, which is not, I think it's somehow in slow motion. There are all these fun experiments that they set up, and Yolanda, by the way, is very passionate about this, and she has helped make this happen quite a bit. So thank you, Yolanda. In addition to that, of course, as part of the EAAI conference, Sheila Tejada also ran an outreach activity for undergraduate students. That's again part of this conference. And I don't know if you noticed during the opening reception, there was like a bunch of these kids in these distinctly green T-shirts that that they were all wearing, and they were from that activity. Before that, of course, we still continue to take part in things like take part in Intel Science Fair. And then I think this one again, in this case, Yolanda and some people from USC helped in giving the AI prizes for the students there. Of course, one other thing that we also get to do is we get asked, AAAI officers, including myself, get asked to talk about AI to all sorts of public forums. It's a hard work. Somebody has to do it. These last 2 years, I got to do it. I guess I'm sure it's important that we actually get the word about AI out in terms that we would like it to be represented, rather than somebody else who actually is not doing the work talking about it. One other thing that we have been doing increasingly these days is sort of also taking helping with the policy initiatives, and also for example, in this particular case, there was a joint statement about this graduate student stipend being taxed, and then AAAI was part of it. Thankfully, we didn't have to worry that much, but at one point of time, it looked like that would be a possible reality. And these are kinds of things that the organization is actually involved in more these days, because of course AI is all over the place, and we need to represent it to the best of our abilities. So AAAI finances, these are the numbers. I actually didn't have the exactly correct numbers for 2017, so rather than put the wrong numbers, I just put basically happy faces. In fact, they are happy. We are actually we are in better financial state than last year. As of at least before yesterday, because yesterday stock market sort of fell quite a bit, but I think it's still pretty fine. And one of the other things is from the conference. So one very interesting point to have in mind is that as a nonprofit organization, we are expected to spend between 3 to 5% of our endowment on activities. So we should be able to take that much in loss as needed. And in fact, the conference has been doing well that in fact we actually have funds in that area, and we've been trying to give that for additional student scholarships and so on. So we are in good shape as far as our organizational finances are concerned. So that's sort of good. So AAAI, by the way, is a membership organization. There are lots of conferences, but AAAI is not just a conference. It is a membership organization. Members elect and run for AAAI officer positions. They can also apply for member awards. We talked about senior members and fellows and the awards for them. The membership is holding steady. It's actually everybody who registers for the conference get to become the member. And so this year, I'm sure the final statistics will show that we have increased membership. In addition, we last year onwards, we also started having this separate list called AAAI affiliates. These are people who are helping running the conference by doing either volunteering or doing reviewing work and so on. And they also are part of this affiliates membership. And I think that, including that, we have about another 4,000 or so people who pretty much very well know about AAAI as the organization and respect it quite a bit. Of course, these are the awards: Distinguished Service, AAAI Senior Member, AAAI Fellows. Please make sure that for the senior members, understand that if you're a member, you can nominate yourself. And then, in fact, it's a very we saw some very impressive people getting the senior member recognition. And for the AAAI fellows, those of you who respect people's work in the community, please take time to nominate people for fellowship. Okay. Of course, we have Classic Paper Award, Engelmore and Feigenbaum Prize, and ACM AAAI Alan Newell Award. We still have a lower priced membership for developing countries, and that is still active. And so, for example, people in India, China, Africa, etc., will have much lower membership fee, and that we have done that to increase the interest in being members, and that is something I wanted to bring up to the people here. The last thing on this side is the AAAI chapters. We always had AAAI chapters, and then, of course, for a while, people want starting new ones. But again, there is significant interest right now in starting chapters in various universities as well as countries. So more recently, actually, AAAI India. There's a AAAI India chapter right now. I got to go. I was there in summer, and then I got to actually, inaugurate it. I believe Vasudev Sharma, who was the guy standing behind me, was attending this conference. I'm not sure if he's in the audience. But so that's another new chapter, and we are getting lots of interest from universities, departments, and countries to start these chapters. So that's something that I want to mention here. There has been, we are continuing on improving the AI magazine, and also there is a possible transition in the way AAAI Press is run, and those are things that we will bring to the membership's notice once we actually complete those. I believe this is what I was mentioning earlier. We have a significant amount of policy and public outreach activities. I've shown you that graduate student stipend joint statement, for example. I should mention that I represent AAAI currently on the partnership for AI, and I sit on the board of directors. And Partnership for AI is an organization that shares a lot of our bigger goals, and that's a industry nonprofit consortium, and that's been doing very well, and there's a significant amount of interest on industries joining that consortium. That's a separate organization from AAAI, but we have a seat on their board of directors. So that's basically all I have to talk about, and I want to open the floor for people to bring up issues either about this conference, things that worked, things that you wish would change a little bit more, and also any future directions for AAAI. And since people somehow tend not to come to the mics, there are 2 mics, and please talk into them. There are mystery prizes. There are drink coupons that will be generously provided to people who ask thoughtful questions. Don't ask a question that just says, give me my coupon. And also, I should mention that if there are any precocious high school students who wrote AAAI papers and came to the conference, please don't use these for alcoholic beverages. AAAI doesn't support that. Okay, so continue. Can somebody put that on? Yeah.
Two quick things. One, just another note in terms of successful outreach. As probably many people know, the preeminent science competition for high school students is what used to be the Westinghouse Science Talent Search and is now then became the Intel Science Talent Search, and now it's become the Regeneron Science Talent Search, who spends a lot of money. And in fact, the top prize is now $250,000 for the winner. The 40 finalists / winners have just been announced, and 10 of them are actually AI-related projects. So if anyone's going to be in the Washington, D.C. area around March 12th, the 40 winners will actually be showing their wares in a museum. I forget which one, but I just wanted to mention that as another example of the prominence of AI down at the level of high school students. I wanted to make one request. I thought the conference was absolutely great. I hope we don't get to the state where we have as many parallel sessions as IJCAI, and it makes it almost impossible to decide where to go. I was hoping that folks like Rao, who's now disappeared, that Rao and maybe for the plenary talks, it might be possible to put the slides up on the website so we can share them with some of our colleagues who weren't able to make it, particularly like your opening talk about the conference and the plenary talks, if that's possible. I'd love to see that happen.
Yeah. So just on that, since you mentioned my name, first of all, I forgot to mention that AAAI has a strong social media, and I forgot and hit that slide. So you know that there's a Twitter for AAAI, and I actually put up my slides, and I think they're available through the Twitter, but I will make sure that they'll also get onto the website. One of the things is the website is being re-engineered, and so it takes a little longer to put things on the website, and social media is much faster. And by the way, I do request, to the extent you have interest, please get onto the social media if you have time, because people are talking about AI, and once again, I would like people who know AI to talk about AI, and I think everybody here is part of that set. But we'll make sure that they'll also be on the, and of course, the other thing I should mention is all these talks are being live streamed, and all the videos will be up very soon too.
I just wasn't quite sure from your comment whether that included the things like tutorials. I think it's a shame to have people give great tutorials at AAAI, and everyone learns things these days just by watching YouTube, of course. So AAAI should be very well represented there, I think.
Yes, I actually, we did not videotape the tutorials, but we will certainly make the slides available, and it will be I think it will be good to think about videotaping the tutorials also starting next year. Typically, my understanding is that there are restrictions, when you have tutorials in the hotels, because they tend to decide who gets to hold a video camera. So that typically tends to make things harder. Also, by the way, those of you who ask questions, please catch me and get your mystery prizes. Yes, please.
Yeah, so last year, having the job fair had been great, except that it was not very centrally located, so we didn't have great attendance. I want to say the job fair was in a much better location this year, and it was very successful for my company and I think many others. Oh. So thank you. Let's keep that up and have it in a good central location near the rest of the exhibitors and some of the rooms where talks are going on again next year. So
thank you for saying that. Thank you very much.
Just a small piece of feedback. So the app is quite useful given the complex program, but it would be slightly better if the app was ready a few days earlier, because I think it was only ready like on Thursday or something.
Yeah.
Which time people may be traveling already, but a little bit useful to have it at least a few days earlier. There may be some logistics issues.
Okay. We'll keep that in mind. That side then?
Oh, thank you for the great conference. It's really been wonderful. I had two questions regarding your two questions at the end. Regarding AAAI's role over the next 5 to 10 years, I wondered if the Executive Council had plans to incorporate responsibility in research and innovation as a theme. In Europe right now, there's quite a bit of activity around responsible innovation, and I wondered if that was on the radar with the Executive Council. And the second one is to diversity. I noticed there were no maybe materials or brochures, pamphlet, the conference program. Maybe a Chinese language edition might be an easy first step to opening access in that regard.
Okay. So on the I guess the brochure thing, of course, is something that we should be doing. We could consider. I mean, we should be getting to a place where Babelfish style translation should be possible, but apparently it's not, sure, and so you know, we will definitely keep that in mind. I didn't quite, so by diversity you meant the linguistic diversity and access. There are certain things that AAAI does do much more actively right now. There is a Women in AI breakfast, and there are a variety of other outreach activities that we talked about. There should be more of those, and I actually again want to mention that, you know, Yolanda is really very much, you know, helping with that sort of activities. And as a whole, the council is very interested in helping with those. One, I guess that the last thing that you mentioned was the responsible research.
Responsible innovation has been taken up quite seriously in Europe and different areas, and I thought maybe the next 5 to 10 years it might be that AI is a place, or AAAI is something that could balance the hype, let's say, with
yeah, so there are, I guess, two different things. Of course, we don't necessarily have it in the main conference itself, but AIES is, of course, a very much a step in that direction, and it's part of AAAI sponsored conferences. And so that's one way we are obviously doing that, essentially.
Well,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. For those, for the people there, can you put the slides instead of my face so that people remember what sorts of questions we should be talking about? Yes, please go ahead.
There were several nice works on reproducibility and how we should be better about it. One thing that I wanted to bring up was if there was something we could do to change the way the community views negative results and to make negative results more prominent.
That's so that's, I think, so I presume you mean then they should be recognized with things like publications. Is that what you had in mind? I mean, I just want to make sure that I understood.
That could be one approach, to have like shorter papers that are negative results. Other ideas could be to have forums where people can discuss problems they're encountering with particular methods.
I think it makes a lot of sense to me. I'm sure Pascal is hearing, and you know, we'll take that today. Thank you.
On the idea of negative results, a negative results workshop would be fun. But what I really wanted to say is that a lot of the research that gets presented here revolves around building software systems. And at a few other technical conferences, they have an artifact evaluation track where you're not submitting a PDF for review, but like a running system with documentation and APIs and so on. And in the AIIDE conference, we're starting to talk about having that. It would be interesting if there was such a thing at the AAAI main conference level.
Okay. I guess once again, those are suggestions, and you know, Pascal hopefully is taking. And we also, by the way, this is also being recorded. Thank you. Go ahead.
So this is not really a question, it's more a comment, so I guess I don't get my drink ticket. But
no, you can get it free. If you just stand up and say something thoughtful,
so,
you get it.
I actually just wanted to point out, I want to say something about the doctoral consortium. So we have Maria Chang and Dan Magazzini who ran it this year. And yes, I think we should applaud them, first of all. I think the DC is a labor of love, and it's a lot of labor. It's more labor than love, honestly. And it's on the first day, you know, parallel with workshops and tutorials. A lot of people haven't made it to the conference, and I just wanted to point out that it's a great program. More of you who have come to AAAI for the first time should participate, whether as students or as mentors, or even if you just want to come up and give a talk if you're a senior member. I was part of the DC as a student. I've been part of it as a mentor now, and it's immensely helpful. It's the first point of contact for a lot of the future community members, and I would like to see it grow in size from year to year, although Maria and Dan probably don't agree at this point. But I really think we should do everything we can to support the DC, make it larger, and make it much more applicable to a lot of people. So again, just wanted to point that out and thank them for their efforts.
I think that's a very good point, and we should talk about actually spending some extra money we have in further on these scholarships for the DC. I want to sort of, I guess, also point out, I also agree with you that Maria Ginny in particular has been the doctoral consortium for AAAI and ICHKAI for such a long time, and this is amazing amount of help she has done. But she's also, I know, have been looking for people who would basically take over and help. People like you sound, who are passionate about it should step forward and help run this, and that would also be great. Thank you. Okay, that's it then. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think it used to be the case that we had AAAI papers and proceedings available during the conference, but since we moved to winter, we have to wait for 2-3 months for them to appear. There are many papers I would like to cite, I would like to reference, read. So can we hope that proceedings will be available during the conference?
That's such a very good point, and we are working, as I said, one of the things about press transition is to try to see that after the transition, the proceedings will actually be again available, before the conference, at the conference. As you pointed out, it's partly this very compressed time cycle that has caused part of this problem, and council has discussed this, multiple council members have brought this up. It's very much on our radar, and we are trying to fix it. Okay. Thank you. What?
Hi.
Yes. I think. I'm sorry. On the guidebook. So you can reach the papers from the guidebook application. Proceedings separate, yeah. Okay, Hector?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the wonderful conference, by the way. It's been a long time for me, so it's very nice. It's really a huge job. Something I noticed, for some reason, I've been going to different kind of sessions and also listening what people were saying about the other session where they usually don't go. And there is, of course, this is not a new topic, the thing when I go to another session, when I'm following what's going on there, if when I ask a question, can I understand the problem? So this is always this problem about the cross-communication. So I just wonder what you guys are thinking about that, how to do that. I know there's this tension about having more track, having less track. The idea of having the poster is also a way so people can go and see other things. So what are your current insights about that? I think I need 2 tickets for that.
2 tickets? Tough questions don't get any tickets, but again, I guess this is there's a question of accessibility of talks, I guess, across areas, partly. These are being discussed in the conference. There was also a whole discussion this morning about trying to help improve the way the talks are presented at the conference. I know this is a touchy issue. Everybody thinks they give beautiful talks except the other folks. And but I know that Pascal, I don't know whether he's ready to share some information, but I know that Pascal has some great ideas about proactively doing something about helping for talk quality. Okay. So we are aware of it. And I guess this is part of the fact that AI is a huge field, and that's part of the reason why the tutorials are important, so that people actually can get into the other areas. But people are aware of the fact that the talk qualities and the accessibility issues are important. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi. There's been some nice work throughout the presentation of the conference. One issue has been the fact that the authors were not able to present their work due to the traveling ban. How about considering making a venue in Europe? At least there is no traveling ban.
So I would like to point out that AAAI did, so first of all, I think that particular issue of travel ban has been a very unfortunate issue. AAAI has, the last year when this happened, in the last minute, we tried, to proactively help the people affected by that. We are still trying to do that this year too. The council is taking into account the idea of taking AAAI outside of North America. Hawaii is the first step. It's not in the North American landmass. You guys may or may not know this. And it has beautiful beaches. That's another thing. And I actually this is being recorded. I hope my IJCAI colleagues would not later on complain. People from Europe want AAAI in Europe. Just remember this. So we are coming one of these days. But I think it's being considered. For sure.
Thank you.
AAAI does well. First, let me thank everybody for the great conference. It was a really good experience. So AAAI does a great job in terms of supporting PhD students and getting them through the process, and we've got all sorts of things that help them out. But the thing is that the trajectory is aimed more towards the academic end. So what can we do to facilitate the transition from the academic preparations into the industry preparations? I spend a lot of time untraining people once they get to my team in order to get them to be able to just operate properly within that environment.
So obviously there's no simple answer to that. Part of what happens is AAAI doesn't train people, the advisors train the students, right? And we can ask them to do a better job on that aspect. But a very relevant question is having...
Well, I know you don't train, I know we don't train because I've been on both sides of the fence. So what I'm trying to bring up here is that they're both equally valid destinations. And as an organization, we focus on one and leave the other one out.
So there are two parts. Of course, there is the AAAI conference is co-located. It's part of AAAI, and that's in part supposed to help, give prominence to work that is connected more directly to the applications. And there is also, the AAAI is very much aware of the fact that we would like to have bigger, industrial participation. As you may remember, last year in San Francisco, we had a sort of an industry track and in one of the tutorial days, and that was very well received. Part of that, we basically, of course, one of the issues there is if you do that during the first 2 days, they tend to also suck the oxygen out of the tutorials and the workshops. And so it's a delicate balance. And this was discussed. Again, pardon me if I come across as we discussed everything, but we in fact did discuss this issue also in the council. And one of the ideas that we have discussed is potentially having the last day of the conference actually be the full day instead of half day, and then use that as sort of an industry participation, industry day with industry track talks and so on. That might well happen. So I think, again, you brought up issues that we very much resonate with, even though it didn't happen here this year. We are very much, and part of the reason it didn't happen here this year is because of this delicate balancing that you have to do in terms of making sure that, if you put the track in the first 2 days, that also, we already had an AIES conference going on. But I think your points are very well taken, and I think people on council definitely agree with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Jean.
Rao, let me just second what you just said and say specifically, it sounds like he disappeared, but you had some specific things in mind. And if you want to chat with me after this meeting or send a message to me, you don't know my email, but you could send it to Rao, who forwarded it to me. one of the people working on these issues of AAAI and industry, and also the chair of the next IAAI will be very interested in this, I'm sure. So, and if there's anybody else in the audience who's from industry, who has input on how we could better interact with industry in general and as part of IAAI in particular, please get in touch, and we'd be delighted to get ideas about that.
Yeah, I should mention that Gene actually has had a whole bunch of ideas that he exchanged with the council, and then we are starting an additional ad hoc committee for industry engagement, and he's actually in charge of that. So, please do send me an email. There is an email address there, and then I would be happy to forward to him, or you can just directly send it to Austin.
I very much welcome the live streaming of some of the sessions. I think that's a good thing to increase participation in events like this for people who can't be here, who can't afford to be here, or can't be for all sorts of other reasons. It'd be good to see that well promoted in advance so people can plan the time to try to participate in these. I don't know if you did this, but if you can also record them, those live streams, because there's obviously a time shifting issue for some people in different countries. What I would say is that for including people who cannot get the visas, and that would occur in countries even if we were outside the US for that. It's particularly problematic in the US at the moment for us running conferences here, but I'm sure it will always arise that there'll be some countries can't get into some other countries. So we need to sort of allow for that. We need to allow for people to be able to participate when they can't travel, and that might occur at the last minute, or it might occur, they might know in advance it's not even worth asking, or they're probably not going to be able to come. But we could use the opposite of live streaming, if you like, stream people in as part of their talk. And you may have to arrange that so that the session is those people who could not attend, just so that we've got the technology to stream them in. But I'm very keen on the idea that we do try to have virtual and mixed reality meetings at some stage with the kind of events we're running. I think it increases participation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just one comment about getting industry involved. That's where I come from. Frankly, putting a conference in Hawaii doesn't make it easier for industry to get involved, both in the time required to get out there, and more importantly, to get financial approval, because most finance people don't look kindly at going to Hawaii in February for supposedly for a conference.
But it's Honolulu, though. I don't know if that helps, but
I'm glad you talk to my finance people.
We understand, and I think this was again, I think it's also brought up by some people with government organizations too, and again, just to put this in perspective, historically, AAAI considered Hawaii multiple times and didn't do it, and part of the big reason this year is also to sort of, because there's a significant interest from people coming from Asia to get to a place that's not as far for them, and so again, it's a question of balance, and all we can say is, this wasn't done willy-nilly, and we were aware of the fact that some people will be inconvenienced. Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? So this may well be the last time I get to use this in front of you. So the community meeting ends. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.